This video is made possible by our sponsors, Google, Vonage, and 8x8. See the video description for links and more information.
So I'm really excited. We did this for the first time last year where we had brought together all the major browser vendors to talk about WebRTC and what they're doing in their implementations. We're excited to be doing this again, second time in a row. I'm going to go around and introduce our panelists real fast. First, I'd like to introduce Harald Alvestrand, representing Chrome. He's an engineer and standards coordinator for WebRTC at Google. All right, next I'd like to introduce Nils Ohlmeier. Nils was with us last year. He's Firefox's engineer for media manager, or Firefox's engineering manager for media, which also includes WebRTC. Next, we have Bernard Aboba, representing Edge. You might recognize Bernard from past Cranky events too. So he's the principal architect at Microsoft. And last, we have Youenn Fablet. Sorry, Youenn, my French accent's not very good. He's a software engineer at Apple working on WebCodecs. So to start out today, I guess I'd like to ask, before we get into your individual browser updates, how has the pandemic changed your development priorities? And since we have this nice slide from you, Harald, up here already, maybe I'll let you start.
Thank you. Well, as you know, the pandemic meant an enormous amount of growth and usage of WebRTC. And that meant that priority number 1, and probably 2, 3, and 4 also became keep the lights on and keep the show running. Usually when something doubles in size, you add more computers. When something goes up by a factor of 10, you throw it out and redesign. This time, we had up to factors of 50.
Wow.
And people were commenting about the service we were running as, hey, it just kept on working. That's the highest praise you can get for people who are running a service.
Yeah, Nils, do you have you have any comments, I guess, on how how the pandemic's changed things for you there at Firefox?
Yeah, similarly, we saw like our telemetry numbers obviously also like increasing drastically, like the minutes WebRTC is used in Firefox. And similarly to the other browser vendors, we basically hit the brakes and stopped like shipping any features which we considered risky. For example, like we last minute reverted, like DTLS 1.0 is still with us, which I announced last time we would deprecate. But there are like still instances out there using it, and we didn't want to like destroy that, basically, that these services in the middle of the pandemic. And then you can see on the slide, we stopped like a couple of things and instead switched to like a bug fixing mode. We basically did lots of small bug fixes instead, which we figured which are like more important during the pandemic, that like these little paper cuts get resolved.
Yeah. Maybe I'll open up too for Youenn or Bernard. Do you have any quick comments on how the pandemic's kind of has changed your development?
Well, I would say it's created a long-term focus on both performance and reliability, and you'll see that in some of the items that we'll be working on.
Yeah, we'll get that to in a second too. You want to give you a chance to any quick comments on pandemic impacts?
Yeah, it's not only the number, but what's huge in terms of increase, it's also the population that changed. If you look at the numbers, the number of iPad OS users has increased largely. So in proportion, it's a large increase. And also in terms of the population, the education people are starting to use it massively. So teachers, students, and that makes the priorities in terms of feature changing as well. So of course, performance stability is top priority. But with the change of population and usage, then you also need to change the priorities of the features you actually want to ship now.
Okay. With that, maybe let's dive into a little bit about some of the what's new, or what you've added, or what you changed this year. Harald, can you start?
Yes, so can you blow up that slide?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what we did last year was effectively finishing up all the full functionality WebRTC 1.0. Video, audio, data, peer-to-peer, server-based, cross-browser instability, test suite, converging towards the standard. Now, we shipped and continue to ship lots of improvements, like better codecs, better audio, better noise cancellation, better echo detection, and so on. But we didn't change the actual paradigm much. So if you turn the slide, you'll see that what we get to next is changing the paradigm.
Yeah, and we'll actually get to, I want to talk about, I guess, what's coming in the future, or what's coming next, towards the end, if you don't mind. Yeah, actually, maybe with that, just to, I'll jump back to Nils. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of what's happened recently in Firefox.
Yeah, like one of the more unusual features, not super related to WebRTC, but like in my slide, you can see like a little screenshot. We shipped like picture-in-picture, which started in the playback area, but now, as you see in this screenshot here, behind the pref, we have the ability to actually pop out multiple videos, which is very nice for video conferencing. You basically can hover like the videos of the participants you care most about and continue in the background working. And then like little features which were requested, like DTS, transport, RTP size. I think the biggest ones which we shipped during the pandemic specifically for helping in these like working from home situations were like enabling finally transport CC and the highly requested RTX features to help with bandwidth congestion and packet retransmission or packet loss. So we tried to focus on these features which had been requested for a long time, and hopefully make life better at home, basically.
Okay. Bernard, do you want to talk a little bit about Edge?
Sure. 2020 was a very eventful year for Edge. On January 15th, Edge Chromium was released. Since Edge is based on WebRTC.org source, it's our expectation that applications written for Chrome should just run. The WPT test results indicate that this has largely been achieved with a few exceptions. So if you've encountered a compatibility issue, please file a bug. One of the processes we use to maintain compatibility is that WebRTC improvements are made to Chromium first and flow into Edge after being reviewed and merged into Chromium using the established processes. In 2020, so far, our focus has been on contributions to complete support for the WebRTC 1.0 specifications by adding things like ICE candidate error event, simulcast statistics, aspects of perfect negotiation, such as rollback, which we actually consider to be a reliability feature, and improvements to screen capture. We've also made contributions to improve H.264 reliability and performance. In terms of things we're working on to come, next slide.
Yeah, we'll actually get to the what's coming next towards the end. I wanted to get into some of these issues first. Maybe Youenn, I'll let you go real quick.
Yeah. So we just shipped our new iOS betas and macOS betas, where we are excited about some new APIs that we are bringing to users. I was talking about how priorities have shifted, for instance. And Media Recorder is a good example where we thought it was really important now to have it. A lot of websites are using it. These websites have surged in popularity, so it's really important to have it. So that's why Media Recorder API is available in the latest iOS betas. So if you want to test it, that's great. The next thing is a long time requested feature. So get user media in WK Web Views, which was a missing piece for being able to use WebRTC in WK Web Views. So it's a very nice way of programming in JavaScript as usual, WebRTC and not natively. So it's available in the betas as well. If you want to test it, go for it.
All right. Maybe while I have you, Youenn, on the topic of mobile, I mean, that certainly the WebView is a mobile thing. You mentioned earlier, a big increase in usage on iPads. Can you talk a little bit about what's like new and unique on mobile and some of what you're seeing there? I guess I'm especially interested. I mean, again, you talked about the web view, but just mobile browser usage, and also progressive web apps.
Yeah, sure. So, in my sense, we had two distinct worlds. We had mobile and we had desktop. But if you look now at iPadOS, for instance, users may decide to be mobile or desktop. It's their choice. And it's really up to the website then to think that, okay, I have a desktop user, I have a mobile user. Not really. But we should move out of this idea and really think that you have features in the device. You should feature detect them. You should think in terms of, do I have get display media? Oh, what's the screen resolution? This kind of things, and build your application on that. So my understanding is that there's a kind of a blurring between these two worlds. And in terms of programming, it's happening, and also in terms of native applications. You will soon be able to run your iOS applications very easily on macOS devices as well. So the same thing is happening both in browsers, in web PWAs, in web views, and in native apps.
Okay, and maybe thanks. Maybe I'll open up that question to the rest of the panelists. Anyone else want to comment, I guess, on what you're seeing that's new, unique in mobile, especially in very curious around PWA, WebView, improving support there. Maybe Bernard, I'll start with you.
Well, we're very interested in enabling PWAs on Windows in particular and doing a bunch of things to allow them to be more easily installed and things like that.
Okay. Harald, any comments on, I guess, specifically around mobile?
Well,
mobile browser, I should say, versus native mobile is certainly another topic. But.
Yeah, I'd like to support Youenn in that the distinction is kind of blurry. People aren't thinking of mobile browser versus desktop browser. They're thinking, I want to see this feature on the screen I currently have in my hand or on my desk. So the less we care about the specific form factor of the device and the more we care about functionality, the better for the user, I think. I mean, we're WebRTC. We deliver functionality to everyone, including the native platforms. So no matter what, it's still WebRTC and it's still necessary functions.
Nils, any quick comments? None required.
Yeah, no. From Mozilla's side, 2020 is interesting in the mobile area because we launched or relaunched our browser on Android, which is now based on Phoenix, which is a complete rewrite behind the scenes, more compartments, and it can be utilized by other vendors as well. They can basically pick their parts they want to use. And WebRTC is one of the components these other vendors can choose to integrate into their applications or not. But I totally agree with Harald and Youenn, with our main browser on Android from Mozilla itself. WebRTC basically works exactly the same on desktop as it works on mobile. We do not differentiate. There is no special features which work on one or the other. They should all work the same, no matter whether it's mobile or desktop.
Okay. Maybe then moving on to the next topic. Actually, this already came in on the YouTube chat. A couple questions around WebCodecs and WebTransport, and I think you're probably related to this is WASM. Where do you see these technologies intersecting with WebRTC in the browser, and where do you see this going? I guess maybe the more fundamental question is can these techniques or use of these techniques help web match native on on the foreign side? Bernard, actually, I'll let you. First.
Well, I think there's two aspects of matching. One is performance, and I think there's some real challenges with WebTransport and WebCodecs to equal the performance of native. But it does, from the get-go, enable the flexibility that you have in native for things like machine learning. So I think that gets delivered right away, but the performance is a real concern, at least on our side, in terms of whether it can match mobile.
Okay. Anyone want to go next? Maybe back to you, Harald.
So, in fact, this is what I was thinking, that we have a lot of new use cases that need addressing beyond the traditional video conferencing and sundry. I mean, virtual reality, camera effects, Internet of Things device, machine learning things, and these require new APIs. We can't just continue improving the WebRTC 1.0. So that's where we come up with what we're calling insertable streams, or the Breakout Box, where we actually break open the WebRTC pipeline and allow users to install JavaScript efficiently into the pipeline. And that means access to web GPU, that means access to WebTransport, that means access to WebCodecs, and all things you can plug together through the new interfaces that are the Breakout Box features that we're currently working on. And I think that might be a very big change in what you can do with WebRTC. And as Bernard said, performance is always a problem. I mean, switching from JavaScript to the core takes time. So we have to find ways to minimize this, to use our computers effectively, and not be doing everything on one single JavaScript thread. But we're getting there.
Yeah, Nils, any comments on this? I mean, I guess I'm also curious too. Do you think having more APIs and more options does it have the risk of making it harder or confusing people, or driving people away from WebRTC if they're going to start trying to do their own thing?
Yeah, let me get back to the original WebTransport from my perspective, since I'm doing not only WebRTC but also playback in Firefox.
Okay, yeah.
I see it as like something like which fills the gap between the classic online streaming technologies like HLS and all that stuff. And these folks are always like interested in minimizing the delay, like lower delays. And like WebRTC would be their obvious choice for like super low delays. But from their perspective, for the 1 to n fan out scenarios, WebRTC doesn't scale very nicely for most of their scenarios. So I think WebTransport basically is like a big hope there that they can reduce the delays and still maintain their like 1 to n fan out. When it comes to like adding more APIs, I'm a little bit torn because yes, if we lower the APIs and give more flexibility, it means more scenarios become possible. But it also means that you need like highly skilled people to utilize these APIs. And often we see only like big companies can afford to have like highly specialized engineering teams who know exactly how to use and leverage these APIs. So I think like the kind of like high level APIs of WebRTC 1.0 gave everyone like a plain level field, where like new deep down APIs could like tilt the field a little bit in favor of like the big companies and big corporations. So that's a little bit of a worry. But on the other hand, like WebAssembly is out there. We already see people using the existing pieces, and it's not great. Doesn't work great. Like the web clients which try to not use the native code but just do everything in JavaScript, they usually can only show like one participant and not like multiple participants like here. So we know that it doesn't perform as well. So it makes sense to work on these areas and make improvements there.
Okay, maybe next I'll turn to Youenn, and I should say we've already had questions come in on how is the new M1 chip gonna benefit or improve performance of WebRTC. Can you comment a little bit about it? Especially I guess coming from
sure,
from your perspective, where do you see a lot of benefits to exposing more low level hardware controls?
So yeah, if people should really check it out, the M1, and it's really interesting to see how it behaves, and also like for the encoder is a little bit closer to iOS devices because it's Apple Silicon as well. So there might be interesting things to dig there. In terms of lower level APIs, the lower you get, the harder it is usually to deploy consistently across a massive amount of devices. So in general, for the web, there's a trade-off you should get there, because if you're trying to control a real-time video encoder, depending on your CPU, you might be very reactive and it might work well, or it might not. And that's where WebRTC current implementation is really shining. We see that a lot of Chrome developers are tuning things. A lot of Microsoft people are also tuning things for Windows. The same for Mozilla and Apple teams, and they're doing a great job. Now, if you provide these lower level APIs, it's up to the developer to do that. And they will need to do that on Windows, on iOS, on macOS, on webbooks, and it gets very, very complex. So that's why, for the benefit of the web, we need to find the right trade-off, and that may take time. So that's why WebCodecs and WebTransport, they certainly have there's a lot of interest right now, and they could fill the gap, and that would be great. Now, it's not shipping technology, so it's a hope, and hopefully we'll do a good job at getting there. But it's not 100% sure. Wasm, on the other side, it's shipping technology. People are using it. They know how it's good, how it's bad, and we can still try to improve things there, and we'll come to that.
All right, great. With that, actually, that may be a good time to talk a little bit about your plans and things that are coming up. Harald, I'll let you start on that. Make this full screen.
So, as usual, we got two levels of things that we're doing. One is everything that works now should work better. I mean, making low-end devices work effectively, receiving, displaying many streams, media processing of various sorts. That's always going to be the case. I mean, AV1 is a new codec that gives better compression. It turns out that it's extremely efficient at encoding small images. So we're going to use AV1 for the little in software for the little pictures, and perhaps use hardware for the big pictures, things like that. But I agree with Youenn in that finding the ways to design new APIs, which is what I think of as exciting, as most exciting, requires careful thought. I mean, the next talk in the series in this session is about end-to-end encryption, which is one of the new interfaces. One of the new interfaces made it possible. And using that API was really simple. But it had implications, perhaps beyond what we originally considered, so that it takes some care, and it means that we have to use the standards organizations to get together so that we can get things discussed, get things done right, and get things done consistently across browsers. Because anything that the browser can do better than the user, the browser should do. Anything that the user can do better than the browser, the user should do. So that's one reason why we all meet and talk in standards bodies all the time.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about it? I guess what we have coming next in WebRTC next V2.
So my biggest deal is the insertable streams, that you can get actually a frame from the browser, apply background shading, apply background blur, make your face green or wear a funny hat, And all these things that people tend to want, they demonstrate that they want it by the fact that they use it when the functions have it, and then put it back on the media stream. Do that fast, efficiently, and in a way that is simple for the application programmer to both understand and execute on. I think that's the biggest revolution I could make in 2021.
Okay.
Everything else follows.
Maybe Nils, I'll let you go next.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, like, what we're working on is like finally rolling out the features which were put on hold by the pandemic. The stocker process is mostly like a security feature. We are looking at shipping at Sync ID, which I actually talked about last year, but we're only going to ship it together with the new API select audio output, which I'm pretty excited about. Because if we ship the combination of select audio output and set sync ID, it will also allow like usages of set sync ID outside of WebRTC. And then the really big one, which the team is quite busy right now, is finally updating our copy of libWebRTC to M86. We basically made a big pause with updating libWebRTC on our end when the Chrome guys started implementing Unified Plan. Because we anticipated that would cause like some instability, and now we think it's finally has like reached like a stable state. And we have like quite a long laundry list of things which are waiting for this update. So that's like what the team is currently very, very busy with. We're expecting that to land probably like in Q1 next year.
Okay. Bernard, why don't you go next?
Okay, maybe you can show the slide on work in progress.
Yep, I got it loaded up here.
Yeah, so going forward, the focus is on reliability, performance improvement, and improvements to screen capture. That includes work on audio offload, support for H.264 hardware encoding, and removal of copies in the pipeline, which is particularly important for WebTransport and WebCodecs. We're starting with zero-copy camera capture. We're also working to improve device reliability, particularly to make sure that every device uses the driver that is most appropriate, and to enable window capture to utilize the latest APIs. Not included in the list are some longer-term projects, such as improving the performance of machine learning in the browser by enabling access to operating system features such as DirectML via the Web Neural Network API.
And you mentioned
there are some other
you want to talk a little bit
projects.
about the other projects or related things, right?
Yeah, release all use are based on WebRTC. That includes WinRTC on our HoloLens WebRTC mixed reality SDK. So you can use WebRTC with AR/VR.
Okay. All right, and I think Youenn.
Yep.
You're next.
Right. I think we will concentrate on three things: performance, compatibility, and privacy. And for performance in WebRTC, we have ongoing experiments for HEVC and VP9. I hope people will be excited about it. I'm excited as well. For compatibility, like Mozilla, we are quite excited about audio output selection. And for privacy, like Chrome, we are very interested in end-to-end encryption. So we have live experiments ongoing. They're available in Safari Technology Preview, either enabled by default or not. So you can start checking them out.
Okay, that's great. Well, I mean, we have a few minutes, but our next talk is actually covers end-to-end encryption too.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for the updates.
Thank you to our sponsors. Vonage, creating engaging experiences that move with your customers. See more at vonage.com/communications-APIs. 8x8, embed full-featured WebRTC meetings in your app with the Jitsi as a service beta. Sign up at 8x8.com/crankygeek. we would like to thank Google for supporting the WebRTC community and this event series. Learn more about WebRTC at WebRTC.org.